AM 1260 KLYC, and the NCAA has made their pairings in the first round of NCAA playoff competition. And in the first game, which is going to be this Saturday at noon, it's going to be played in McMinnville at the Cat Dome. And the Linfield Wildcats have drawn Pacific Lutheran as their first team in the first round of the playoffs. On the phone with us right now, Bill Johnson, the voice of the Linfield Wildcats. Bill, what do you think of the pairing?
Not surprised at all, Dave. Really not. I think that all the people at Linfield felt that it would be either Pacific Lutheran University, which only lost one game during the regular season. The Lutes finished with a record of 8-1. Their only loss, of course, was to Linfield on homecoming Saturday, 29-0. It's either going to be Pacific Lutheran or maybe the representative of the Southern California Interscholastic Athletic Conference, they just call it the SCIAC, to come up to McMinnville and play, because Linfield is the only team on the West Coast without a loss. So the home field advantage was pretty much guaranteed for the Wildcats. And because of the fact that the NCAA likes to save money, because they do pick up a great percentage of the expenses for all the teams that travel, the only expense the NCAA is going to have for Pacific Lutheran coming down to McMinnville is fuel for the bus and the bus itself. And that's really about it. So they're minimizing their expenses. As far as the game is concerned, I think it's a terrific rivalry. 29-0 again was the final. PLU and Linfield have always had a great tradition of good football games, and very much looking forward to Saturday.
Now, there might be a number of people in McMinnville who think this will be a cakewalk. They've already won over them 29-0, but you're telling me the Pacific Lutheran field's a good team.
They have a very, very good team. They have a defensive unit. You never know when the linebackers, quarterbacks are coming on a blitz or whatever. They mix up their defenses a lot. Their offense is good. It's much better than it showed in McMinnville. But then again, the Linfield Wildcats defense has been absolutely tremendous, and they did shut out Pacific Lutheran. But this is a well-coached football team, maybe the best coached football team that the Wildcats have met all year long. And as just an aside, during the regular season when PLU came to the Cat Dome, I had a chance to visit with their broadcaster, Steve Thomas. Has been a friend of mine for years. And after the game was over, Steve looked at me, and he was very serious. He just said, well, I hope we see you guys again this year. So they're very happy to be in the playoffs. They are what would be considered an at-large team to play, because they did not win the conference championship. And, of course, Linfield, by virtue of the win over Pacific, the undefeated season, they're the automatic playoff contending team because they won the Northwest Conference for the 5th year in a row. I think it's going to be a good matchup, very good matchup.
What are Linfield's chances, as I'm looking over the scorecard here of games since September 14th? You got Linfield has wins of 71-21, 52-14 against Cal Lutheran, 45-0 against Case Western, 29-0 Pacific Lutheran. We talked about that. Whitworth, October 19th, Linfield won 51-17. Lewis and Clark Family Weekend, the 26th of October, 84-7. Willamette, November 2nd. Linfield won 56-15. These are major spreads here. Puget Sound 79-3. Pacific 28-22 this last weekend. They basically take over, and they take control and they win football games. What are the chances for Linfield going all the way this year?
Well, they are dinged up with an awful lot of injuries. There's no doubt about that. They have lost too many players on the defensive line to injuries. That will hurt them a little bit. They also play a different style of football than the teams do in the Midwest and the East, where they tend to be extremely, very physical, run-oriented teams. Linfield can run and Linfield can score. I think the question is Linfield going to be healthy enough to really compete down the road? I don't think there's any doubt that they will compete with Pacific Lutheran. They know the Lutes very well. The Lutes are not going to surprise Linfield with anything, Dave, and Linfield will not really surprise Pacific Lutheran University. They just won't. They played each other twice last year. Now they're going to play each other twice again this year. So they know each other very, very well. I think we'll have to wait and see how healthy Linfield can get down the road and if they can compete with some of the national powers. And they are one of the national powers, but right now they're a pretty banged-up football team. We had a couple players go down with injuries yesterday. All-American defensive tackle Tyler Steele and Brandon Funk, who is an outstanding linebacker. They're both seniors. He went out. He was the holder on point-afters and field goal attempts, and he did not return to the game in the second half. As to the extent of his injury, I really don't know. But they have lost some very, very good football players to injury this year, so we'll just see how they stack up against teams down the road. But I know right now they don't really care that much who they're playing in the first round. They just want to make sure they're in the first round because they love to compete.
Now, what we just told our listeners a moment ago, we'll tell them we'll be talking about it all week. This next Saturday is going to be playoff football on KOIC because we're going to start with the noon contest in McMinnville at the Cat Dome with Linfield versus Pacific Lutheran. Pregame will be 11:30. Is that correct?
That is correct, Dave. You're right.
And then at 3 o'clock that same afternoon, we're going to be taking a feed from OSAA for the Summit High School, for the Dayton-Nissa matchup in the semifinal round in the Oregon 3A Football State Championship. So we'll probably go right from the Linfield game right to the Dayton-Nissa game for another action-packed, very high interest. And since the game will be played outside of the area, I'm sure there'll be a lot of listeners for that.
High school football is absolutely fantastic. It has an area of entertainment all to its own because the parents and the families at the high school level, Dave, and they really get involved physically and emotionally.
Yes, they are. So next Saturday, it's going to be football action starting at 11:30, going until probably 5 o'clock or so here on AM 1260 KLYC. It's been a very fun year for the Linfield Wildcats, and looking forward to seeing how far they can go in the NCAA tournament.
Well, I know they're excited about playing. There's no doubt about it. They have an outstanding football team, and I think one of the great facets of Division III football is you never have to be concerned with the computer rankings or the coaches poll or what the media people have to say, because you get to determine the championship team on the field. And 64 teams are starting in the playoffs next weekend. After next weekend, there'll be 32. Then there'll be 16. Then there'll be 8. And then there'll be 4. And then the final 2 go back to Virginia to Salem Roanoke for the Alonzo Stagg Bowl. And the Linfield Wildcats would surely love to be one of those 2, Dave.
How long is this going to take? Are we talking the next month we're going to be seeing playoff action NCAA?
You would have, in Division III ranks, Dave, you would have 4 rounds before the 2 teams are finally determined for the championship game. So if the Linfield Wildcats would go all the way, it would be 5 additional Saturdays for Linfield football and to determine the Division III championship. However, if you lose, for example, last year, the Wildcats lost in the 3rd round on a fumble in overtime to Wisconsin-Oshkosh. That was the 3rd round of the playoffs, and they lost, and that was the end of the season for Linfield.
So more football straight ahead, and looking forward to having it, and looking forward to you calling it and seeing just how far we can go.
Well, we sure appreciate the support of 1260 AM KLYC, Dave. We really do. We also carry the broadcast on a Portland radio station, but people in McMinnville, in Yamhill County, I know I've spoken to too many of them during the regular season, and they all enjoy listening to their homegrown radio station right in their own backyard. So we thank you very, very much for your great support of Linfield football. It's a great sport, wonderful student athletes. They're great in the classroom. They're obviously great on the football field. And KLYC has been a wonderful partner this year, Dave.
Well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to bringing you the game. And then next Saturday, don't forget, starting at 11:30 for Linfield, and then at 3 or probably right at the conclusion of when things wrap up for the Linfield contest, Linfield Pacific Lutheran. We'll be switching to Summit High School from Bend for Dayton-Nissa, the semifinal game for that for all the folks. And we've had a lot of interest from people not only in the Dayton area, but here all throughout Yamhill County supporting the Dayton Pirates. Bill, it's been good talking to you today.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave.
AM 1260 KLYC.